On September 2nd, 2010, 35-year-old Bishnu Shrestha gazed out of the window of a Maurya Express train as it chugged through the dense jungles of West Bengal. Around midnight, the train came to a screeching halt as gangsters poured aboard, armed with knives, clubs and firearms. Stomping up and down the carriage, they began extracting cash, jewelry, laptops and watches from the terrified passengers. Initially, Shrestha kept his head down. It was only when the hijackers put their hands on a helpless young woman that he could no longer stand idly by. He leapt up, drew his kukri knife and threw himself upon the fiends. In the ensuing melee, Shrestha single-handedly killed 3 gangsters and injured 8 more, causing the rest to flee. Who was this humble superhero whose badassery could serve as the inspiration for a Die Hard movie? He was a Gurkha, a member of arguably the single most elite fighting force of the 20th century. In this presentation, we will explore the history of a revered community of modern warriors with a reputation that surpasses the ancient Spartans. Welcome to our video on the friendly, chipper and utterly fearless Gurkha Brigade, whose motto is "Better to die than be a coward." Indian Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw once was quoted as saying, "If a man says he is not afraid of dying, he is either lying or he is a Gurkha." The Gurkhas are elite soldiers native to Nepal, a mountainous country which has long existed at the crossroads of the great empires of Eurasia. They are most famous for their 200-year history of foreign service in the British Army, in which they have earned a reputation as arguably the most reliable, disciplined and fearless warriors of the 20th century. The title of Gurkha is derived from the historical Nepalese kingdom of Gurkha, but has since evolved to refer exclusively to Nepali nationals serving in a foreign army or police unit. Since time immemorial, the frigid peaks and steep valleys of the Himalayan mountains have incubated many hardy peoples, who developed robust martial societies in an unforgiving high-altitude environment. A culturally diverse fighting force, the Gurkhas are drawn from across Nepal's many distinct ethnic minorities, most of whom speak their own unique language and practice a unique variation of the Buddhist or Hindu faith. With an average height of 5 feet and 3 inches, the Gurkhas are the world's fiercest short kings. They are deadliest in CQC, wielding their iconic weapon the kukri knife with fatal finesse. The Gurkhas' prowess with the curved blade is the stuff of legend and spawned this amusing wartime gag. Locked in close combat in the trenches, a squat Gurkha takes a swing at a tall German with his kukri. The German appears to sidestep the swipe. "Ha!" he taunts, "You missed." To this, the Gurkha wipes a drop of blood from his knife and replies, "Shake your head." An insanely rigorous training regimen ensures that the Gurkhas are among the most physically fit humans in the world. In order to even qualify for training camp, each prospective Gurkha has to be able to perform physical feats that would make a prime Rocky Balboa look geriatric. These include performing 75 bench jumps in 1 minute, 70 sit-ups in 2 minutes, and running 3 miles up the steep foothills of the Himalayas while carrying 55 pounds of rocks on their backs in under an hour. Every year, nearly 28,000 young Nepalese men compete for just 200 spots in the British Army's Brigade of Gurkhas, ensuring only the toughest of the tough are inducted into the modern world's most feared fighting force. Gurkha history is utterly inundated with insane stories of military heroism, and we would be remiss not to retell some of them here. In 1945, Lechiman Gurung of the 8th Gurkha Rifles was cut off and encircled by over 200 Japanese soldiers in the Burmese jungle. Alone in a trench with only 2 other comrades, he held off the enemy hordes single-handedly. Twice the Japanese lobbed grenades into his trench, and twice he managed to return them to sender. A 3rd grenade landed. This time, when he picked it up, it exploded in his hand, blowing off most of his fingers and severely wounding his face, torso and right leg. Disregarding his mortal wounds and operating his rifle one-handed, the Nepalese warrior fought off wave after wave of Japanese assaults for 4 hours, all while screaming, "Come and fight a Gurkha!" By the time the enemy retreated, he had amassed a final kill count of 31. He survived his wounds and was awarded the Victoria Cross and lived to the age of 92. 6 months earlier, Tul Bahadur Pun of the 6th Gurkha Rifles was advancing on a Japanese-held railway bridge when his entire platoon section was wiped out. As the last man standing, Rifleman Pun charged alone into a hailstorm of enemy fire, barreling ahead over 30 yards of open ground while ankle-deep in mud, weaving through shell holes and leaping over fallen trees. Miraculously, he reached the enemy position without being hit. Leaping into a bunker, he killed 4 Japanese soldiers with his Bren gun and another 3 with his kukri. He then gave accurate supporting fire from the bunker, which allowed the remainder of his platoon to advance. Rifleman Pun was awarded the Victoria Cross and lived until the age of 88. Gurkha families are often warrior dynasties, with sons and grandsons striving to live up to the deeds of fathers and grandfathers. As it turned out, Rifleman Pun's grandson would more than live up to the legacy of his fearless grandfather. In 2010, Acting Sergeant Deprasad Pun was standing guard on a roof checkpoint in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, when he found himself surrounded and under attack by up to 30 Taliban fighters, armed with AK-47s and RPGs. Believing he was about to die, Sergeant Pun resolved to kill as many of the enemy as he could before he went down. Fending off the attackers from 3 sides, he fired more than 400 machine gun rounds, launched 17 grenades, and detonated a mine. When he ran out of ammo, he resorted to using his gun's tripod as a club, smashing it against an insurgent's skull as he scaled the roof. Single-handedly, Sergeant Pun fended off the attack and was awarded the Conspicuous Gallantry Cross by Queen Elizabeth.
There were 12 to 15 Taliban and I was alone, and 1 versus 12 to 15 Taliban had fight and I defeated them.
In doing so, he saved the lives of his 3 comrades and prevented the position from being overrun.
At that time, they were around the checkpoint, and suddenly I noticed that I did not have any choice. I should have given up my life, and I did not care my life. I thought before they kill me, I have to kill some of them.
From the end of the Great Revolt to the start of World War I, British Gurkha regiments were deployed to fight in colonial wars in Afghanistan, Burma, Tibet and China. Throughout all these campaigns, the Gurkhas slowly cultivated their reputation as some of the most resilient, adaptable and indomitable soldiers in the known world. Throughout the First World War, over 200,000 Gurkhas served in the British Army. They fought with all the discipline and bravery that had come to be expected of them, suffering around 20,000 casualties and receiving almost 2,000 gallantry awards for feats of both individual and regimental heroism. The Gurkhas threw themselves against the Germans in the trenches of Ypres and Loo and bloodied their kukri against the Turks at the meat grinder of Gallipoli, where they were among the first to arrive and the last to leave. Throughout the Second World War, over 250,000 Gurkhas served in almost every theatre of battle, suffering around 32,000 casualties. They fought Hitler's Nazis and Mussolini's fascists in Syria, North Africa, Sicily and Greece, while bloodying the nose of Imperial Japan in Burma and Singapore. Earlier in this video, we told the stories of Lachiman Guru and Tul Bahadur Pun, 2 Gurkhas whose insane feats of bravery against the Japanese in the Burmese jungle earned them the Victoria Cross. These were just 2 of a mind-boggling 2,734 bravery awards the Gurkhas earned throughout World War II. After India achieved its independence, the British lost their monopoly on Gurkha invincibility, when some of the Gurkha regiments that had formerly formed part of the British colonial army in India were transferred to the newly independent Indian Army. Meanwhile, in Singapore, a unit of British Army Gurkhas was formed as a riot control and counter-terrorism wing of the local police force in 1949, and played a crucial role in stabilizing the city-state in its turbulent road to independence. The Gurkha regiment that remained in the British Army continued to see action in every conflict the United Kingdom took part in. They were in Cyprus in 1974, the Falklands in 1982, participated in the Gulf War of 1991, and were deployed into Afghanistan in 2001. After over 200 years of loyal service to the British Crown, the Gurkhas have undoubtedly been immortalised as some of the modern era's most lionised soldiers, with a reputation of immortality that rivals the ancient Spartans. Many in Nepal hold the Gurkhas in high regard, and take pride in the reputation for fearlessness and invincibility they have earned for the Nepalese people on the world stage. Thus it seems that for the foreseeable future, young men throughout Nepal will continue to enlist in foreign Gurkha brigades, where they will cultivate themselves into some of the physically and mentally toughest people on the planet, living up to the legacy of their Gurkha fathers and grandfathers as the fiercest soldiers of the modern age.